Okay, welcome everyone. This is the 25th day of February 2019. Welcome everybody. Glad you're here. But prior to the start of the formal portion of the meeting, we have three public hearings. The first is a public hearing on ordinance number 1516, an ordinance to amend the Tullahoma zoning ordinance to add a definition, add as a use, and add development requirements for independent senior living facilities. So let me call on Planning and Codes Director Lee Lawson to step to the podium and offer just a brief explanation of ordinance 1516, please, sir.
This is to allow a senior living facility, which is a type of multifamily development, but it's for senior citizens, I guess, well, not senior citizens, 55 and older. And to allow it at a little bit. I know. Yeah.
We'll take it.
More mature adults. It does allow for a little bit more density. It'll be in the will be allowed in the R3 and the R4 districts. It'll have some supplemental regulations that'll be in another section of the ordinance. But the Planning Commission reviewed the request and gave it a favorable recommendation on January the 22nd, 2019.
Okay. So thank you, Mr. Lawson. I'll call on you in just a moment for the other two. So anyone in the audience wish to direct any comments to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen on ordinance number 1516? Yes, sir.
Chris Sharp, Urban Engineering, 11852 Kingston Pike, Knoxville. I'm the applicant. Lee described it well, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Well, we're pleased for the development. We're looking forward to it, and I'm sure you'll find we'll support it everywhere we can.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, so we'll close our public hearing on the first item. Second public hearing is ordinance number 1517, an ordinance to amend the Tullahoma zoning ordinance to exempt off-street parking areas in the Central Business District C1 from section 501.1.3 part 5 of the zoning ordinance. Mr. Lawson.
This is to amend the ordinance to allow a little bit more flexibility in the development that will occur in the C1 district. It's not a minimum parking requirement, or as far as parking count that's required. So thought it would be best to allow it to have them a little bit more innovative designs. So this is loosening that particular type of regulation for parking in the C1 district.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Anyone else, anyone in the audience have any discussion like to direct to the board on ordinance number 1517? All right, seeing none, we'll close that portion of the public hearing and go to our third public hearing and last, a public hearing on ordinance number 1518, an ordinance to rezone 5 parcels on East Monroe Street from general commercial C2 to medium density residential R2 to accommodate single family dwellings. Mr. Lawson.
It's a request to rezone 5 lots. They originally were zoned R2, but with our zoning, new zoning ordinance map that was adopted back in 2007, it changed the zoning of those lots with that new map. And this will revert it back to residential, and it's currently used as residential, so it only makes sense for them to be zoned that way. It was also given a favorable recommendation by the Planning Commission on January the 22nd, 2019.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Anyone in the audience have any comments to direct to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen regarding ordinance number 1518? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll go to the regular meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. We're very pleased that Reverend Tim, first the roll call.
Sure. Mayor Curley?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem King?
Here.
Alderperson Blanks? Duncan?
Here.
Dunn? Here. Noes?
Here.
Mathis?
Here.
5 present.
So we have a quorum.
Six present.
Six
Sorry.
Present, yeah. So we have a quorum. We will proceed. We're very pleased that Reverend Tim McGee is with us. I ask Reverend McGee to step to the podium and offer our invocation. Ask everyone to please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Reverend Tim McGee.
Father God, we would just want to acknowledge who you are and bow humbly before you right now as we begin this meeting. And every day we look around and your mercies are new and exciting and good, and we thank you for those. And we thank you for a wonderful city to live in. We thank you for our mayor, who is a great ambassador for Tullahoma. We thank you for each of our aldermen and our police force, our EMTs, our firemen, and We thank you for all of our city workers and officials who keep Tullahoma what we are proud of and what we love and appreciate. We ask your blessings upon our servicemen and women and those that are fighting so that we can meet in meetings such as this, so that we can have freedoms and liberties, and so that we can pursue happiness and the right to life. So thank you, Lord, for all of those folks who put their life on the line in so many various ways. We ask for your blessing upon this meeting and each one that's involved in it tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Member McGee. Appreciate you being with us as always. So you see we have a new face has joined us this evening. We're very pleased to welcome our honorary alderman this evening, Miss Casey Day. Casey is a senior at Tullahoma High School. She's very active in a number of organizations. HOSA, she's 4 years varsity at Tullahoma High School softball. She's been active in DECA and FBLA and FCA. She's very active in her church. It just goes on and on. She's an excellent student. She anticipates a 4.0 GPA, 4 years of high school, which is quite impressive. So, Ms. Day, welcome to the Board Mayor and Alderman meeting. We appreciate you willingness to serve as an honorary alderman. So tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Like you said, I'm a senior at the Tullahoma High School, and I plan after graduation to pursue a career in pediatric oncology. I plan to start at Montlow, and then I will go on to MTSU or Vanderbilt after that.
Very nice. Now you've got some family with you tonight, I think.
Yes, sir. My mom, Crystal Carter, my stepdad, Chad Carter, and my pawpaw, Ronnie Hooker, and my little sister, Abby Day.
Yeah, very nice. Well, we appreciate them being here tonight. We appreciate you being here as well. So if you would stand there at your desk, and we have a certificate recognizing you as the honorary alderman tonight. Mom and Dad would want to come up here and get a picture. Congratulations. So for those in the audience that might not know what just happened, for many years, we ask a high school senior, the youth mayor of each year, and this year is Abby Nelson on the front row. She'll be recognized in just a moment for something else, but anyway, it's just, I think, an opportunity for young people to have a little bit closer understanding about their city government and how it sort of works. So we appreciate Casey being here tonight and look forward to other honorary aldermen as we move forward. So, do all of you know that we have a state champion in our midst? You know, that's not, I've never been the state champion of anything. I know I've never even been the city champion of anything, but we have a state champion in our midst. And I'm very pleased to recognize Miss Jane Allen, but I want to ask her coach, Miss Morris, to step to the podium. And we have some other young ladies that have done a remarkable job in their sport, and I ask that the coach, Morris, introduce them as well. And then I'm going to ask Miss Allen if she would to step forward and say anything if she would like to.
Absolutely. Do you want them to come up?
Sure.
Okay. I have to go by weight class order or else I forget. So I start with Destiny Shelton. She's a junior, and she placed 5th at the state this year. And go Devon Desolé. She's a sophomore. She placed 6th this year. Have Kaylee Royal. She's a junior. She's a 2-time state medalist. She was 4th this year. Katie Champion. She's a two-time state medalist. She's a sophomore, and she was third. You have Haley Roberts. She's a junior. She placed sixth. I'm going to save Jane for last, and I'm going to go with Meta Lai Bison. We call her Turkey because she's our foreign exchange student from Turkey. She placed fourth this year. She's a sophomore. And then, of course, Jane Allen. She's a three-time state medalist now and now has the title of state champion. She's a senior. She was first place.
So, Coach Morris, tell us a little bit about how, to some people, maybe wrestling for females might be a new thing. How long has it been happening in Tullahoma?
Oh, absolutely. This was our third season. Coach Mathis helped get it going, Coach Mathis and Miss Kathy Rose. And so the ones who are juniors now, Jane started out her sophomore year. It's been sanctioned in the state for a little bit longer, so, but we're one of the newer ones to have a full girls program like we do, but it is the fastest growing girls sport in the state.
How many matches did you wrestle in the state?
I wrestled 3 matches at state.
3.
What was your record during the course of the school year?
I think it was 26-1, and the girl that beat me, I beat her in the state final.
Oh, wow.
She beat her 3 times.
So, Ms. Allen, let me recognize you at the podium for anything that you'd like to say as well. Okay?
Let me get a picture of it. Just
Well, over the 3 years that I've been wrestling, I feel like the most important person that's helped me, like most important 2 people are my mom and my granny, because one day after school, it was after a middle school wrestling match, I was still a mat girl, which is a wrestling manager at the time, and I asked my mom if I could try wrestling, and she said, well, I guess, and then she went in her room and prayed about it, and then she let me wrestle, and the first day I tried wrestling, I really liked it, and I kept going, and my first year I ended up getting 6th, and I wasn't satisfied with 6th, so I kept wrestling, and I went to camp over the summer, and that's whenever I met my coaches from Team Tennessee, and I went to camps, and I started like socializing with my teammates on my national team. And then next year, I started going to summer practices with the Morrises, and I felt like I was getting better, and I started to get better. And then after last season, I placed 3rd. And then after I placed 3rd, I fully joined Team Tennessee. And then I started to wrestle. I wrestled first in Oklahoma, and then after I went to Oklahoma, I went to Texas, and then I wrestled in Atlanta, and then I wrestled in North Dakota at the Fargo National Championships, and then I wrestled in Indiana at preseason nationals where I got 2nd. And this year, wrestling, it's getting a whole lot different. Like the first year, the girl that I beat in the state final, she got 2nd my first year wrestling, and I got 6th. So wrestling's continuing to grow faster, and everybody's getting better because more girls are going to national tournaments. And my team, they've been really helpful, and like they're supportive, and they help me with anything I need. And yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah. So what is your biggest takeaway from participating in wrestling the past 3 years?
Wrestling teaches you a lot. It mainly teaches you like perseverance and determination and like mental toughness, because it gets hard having to cut weight. Like sometimes I'll have to cut maybe like 10 pounds in a couple of weeks. I'll have to get down really fast, or sometimes practice gets really rough, and it just keeps you, like you become mentally tough and able to push on whenever things get hard. And I feel like I can use that later on in life when things don't really work how I want them to, and I can continue to roll with the punches and continue to push on.
Mr. Mathis, anything you'd like to add?
I've been around this wrestling program for a long time, boys and girls.
Right.
And I know what they have to go through. It's very, very difficult. And I remember when Miss Morris came to me and said, we need to have a girls wrestling team. And I said, all right, here's what I need to do. I'd like to have a list of girls who would be interested. Well, I got a list. And here they are, and they're doing really well. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So we're very pleased that John Carver, who is the Director of Schools, is with us tonight. And now you've been an athletic director. Let me recognize you at the podium as well for any comments that you'd like to make. Recognize this young lady.
Well, you know, it's exciting to be here. I come from Iowa, which has a very rich wrestling tradition, but one thing that we have here in Tullahoma they don't have in Iowa is women's wrestling. And on behalf of the school and all of the Wildcat Nation, I want to congratulate you once again for your accomplishment. Job well done.
So, Ms. Allen, step to the podium again, please. So I know, of course, the day that you earned the state championship is a highlight for your day, but for you. But what you don't know is that today is also a special day in Tullahoma. So, City of Tullahoma Certificate of Recognition presented to Jane Allen for achieving the title 2019 TSSAA State Girls Wrestling Champion. So on behalf of the 18,655 citizens that call Tullahoma home, and by the authority vested in me as mayor of Tullahoma, I now therefore proclaim Monday, February the 25th, 2019, as Jane Allen Day in Tullahoma.
Thank you.
So Ms. Allen, if you would step up here, and I'd like for the 5 aldermen to join me, and let's get a picture with Jane.
Mr. Mathis, yeah, just take a step to your right. There you go.
There you go.
You gotta find the window. You find the window.
Let her go first.
Coach Morris, you need to get her inside Jane. Yeah.
I want the coach up here. I told him before.
Let's go.
Yay.
I'll set it.
I want to get one special with her too. We go to church together. And I accuse her all the time of come watch the meeting one day. So I'm grateful.
Now's your chance.
Yeah. I'm grateful she's my friend. She's my brother.
Thank you.
So we have another special recognition that we would like to recognize this evening. You know, it really takes a great group of corporate citizens of Tullahoma to make a lot of the good things happen that we enjoy in Tullahoma. And the annual Independence Day regional celebration that we have frankly could not happen without the support of some of our major corporate citizens. And so at this time, I'd like to call on Parks and Rec Director Kurt Glick to come to the podium, and he's got a recognition, special recognition that he would like to offer to 3 of those corporate sponsors. Mr. Glick.
Thank you, Mayor. Like you said, the large Independence Day celebration we have is second to none in the area. We have first-class bands, the largest fireworks display outside in Middle Tennessee, outside of Nashville. And all that stuff couldn't be possible without major corporate sponsors. And these sponsors in particular we're talking about tonight are not only come here for this event, but they're there for every event. Every time that I approach any one of them and ask them, it's just, what can we do to help? So tonight we'd like to recognize them and thank them for the things, for the 4th of July, for the Independence Day celebration, all the years we've done it, and everything else they've done to help the community. So if I can call on them first, we have Clint Insell with Cherokee Distributing. Caroline and Robert Hennigan with L&H Distributing. And James Fuller with Smart Bank. James Fuller is not here.
I'm going to give this to you and you can make the presentation. Smart Bank to Winston.
Thank you very much. That's just a small token of our appreciation. I hope you'll be able to display that in your office. And thank you for everything you've done, and hope we'll have more great events in the future. Thank you.
Stand right here, we'll get a picture of you and Kurt.
Maybe the mayor.
Mayor.
No, that's fine. Y'all go ahead.
You got too many pictures already in there.
Wait just 1 second.
Do any of the three of you want to say anything?
We're happy to be a part of the event and fortunate to be able to give back to our local communities.
100%. Yep. Thank you. Okay. Let me recognize Mrs. Moody at the podium for a social presentation that she would like to make.
Yes. You'll remember we started this year recognizing Employee of the Month, and this month it's not one single employee but a team of employees, and they can be recommended by either a citizen or an employee. So since we have so many citizens in the audience tonight, I wanted to be sure to say that. We take nominations through our Human Resources Department for employees that exemplify our values and our commitment to public service. And so tonight I'm going to invite Kurt Glick, our Parks and Recreation Director, back up to introduce his team and talk about why they were nominated.
Thank you, Jennifer. Well, tonight is really a night of champions. Tonight we had the championship wrestler, we had championship corporate citizens, and now we have championship employees. We recently hosted a Sports Hall of Fame, the inaugural Tullahoma Sports Hall of Fame event at D.W. Wilson Community Center. We transformed the D.W. Wilson gym into a place that everybody talked about. It looked great. I started wondering after a while when they started saying how that they didn't even look like, couldn't believe the community center could look like this. So, after a while, I kind of started taking offense to that. But anyway, they did. It was a great event. It was a great night, and a big part of that night was the food that was served. And it was, people asked me during the night, and I'm sure maybe asked you, Mayor, or some other, they asked who catered the event. Well, the event was catered by Tullahoma Parks and Recreation Department, by our concession staff, and it was done in a kitchen that really wasn't designed for it, didn't have the proper equipment, but they made do with that and put out a great meal. And from what I heard, everybody really was pleased with the outcome. We had chicken cordon bleu, flank steak, a vegetable medley, and mashed potatoes, along with a salad and dessert. So it was a full-service menu.
And served how many people?
We served 240 people. It was Lyle may give you a little bit update on the quantities of food, but 240 people were served in a little over 30 minutes, about 40 minutes it took to get all the food out to everybody, so plated meal. We had 6 employees that did all this, led by Lyle Russell, Brooke Thomas, our two leaders. Come on up, Lyle and Brooke. And Colton Gunn was also another full-time person that helped them. And then we had 3 part-time people, Jacob Bilodeau, Abby Nelson, and Cade Kennedy. All helped, so they did a great job. I think, we had a banquet with 240 people, and I think a few of these people might have just been cooking banquet dinners in the microwave about a week before. It might have been the biggest experience they had with food service. But anyway, I'd like to invite Lyle up. Maybe you could say a couple other words. And
thank you. I'll keep it quick. In the end, we prepared for 256 was the head count. I think about 240 was what actually went out. But like was said, we couldn't have done it without every part of the team. It was very much a team effort, and we were very tired at the end of the night. And I think the next day, no one called each other. We were pretty worn out, but in the end, it turned out to be a great event. And the only thing I'll leave you with is there was a guy that approached me right afterwards as he was walking out, and he said, the food was great. He said, who did you get to cater it? And I said, Parks and Rec. He goes, oh, where is that at? And I said, you're standing in it. So he thought that was funny at the time, thank goodness, because I may have said it a little more rude than I meant to. But yeah, so we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You can use the stuff to your advantage. Alright, a little closer, would you like to? Yeah, well, friends. There we go. Alright. One more.
So that completes our presentations for tonight. All of you are welcome to stay, as long as you'd like to stay, or if you need to slip out, that's fine too. But I want to give you an opportunity, if you do choose to leave, then now's a good time to do that. Or stay as long as you want to.
Would you please kindly pass the water? Thank you, thank you. Oh, thanks. Now, are you going to the TML conference in March? Are you going to the TML conference?
Okay, so we will proceed. We're ready for comments from the citizens. Anyone in the audience wish to address the board at this time? Ms. Sebring, let me ask you to step to the podium, and for the record, just give us your name and address, please.
May I sit this
Of course. Yep.
here where it can be
Welcome, Ms. Sebring.
well, I did, but that's okay. Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. My name is Sandy Sebring. I'm a member of the Shady Grove Garden Club and chairman of the Blue Star and Gold Star Memorial Project. This is a national memorial project sponsored by the National Garden Clubs Incorporated. And currently there are 73 installed memorials in Tennessee. The nearest Blue Star Memorial is on Dinah Shore Boulevard in Winchester. These memorials came from the heart of a grateful nation shortly after World War II, and they continue to this day. The Shady Grove Garden Club proposes to install the Blue Star and Gold Star markers on a 14-foot circular concrete pad at the northeast side of History Park. The markers measure 41 inches high, that's your blue star over there and the gold star, and 45 inches wide, and are on a 7-foot pole. The tribute engraved on both sides reads as follows, and I should have written it, but I didn't. The blue memorial says, "A tribute to the armed forces who have defended the United States of America." The gold star says, "A tribute to Gold Star families whose loved ones paid the ultimate price defending the United States of America." Our club, along with the American Legion Post 43 family and the Tullahoma Historical Preservation Society, purchased the 2 memorial markers. We would also install a lighted 20-foot flagpole. The concrete pad and flagpole would be paid for from donations. The installation of the memorials would be completed and dedicated by the end of May 2019, Memorial Day. And you may know that at this time we have at least 3 World War II veterans living in Tullahoma. They are all right about 100 years young, and they would be our honored guests at this dedication. Prior to the dedication, the Shady Grove Garden Club will begin the sale of brick pavers at $120 each. The pavers would be engraved with the name, rank, service branch of the veteran honored or remembered. The proceed from the sale of the pavers would pay for the installation. The pavers would be joined to the existing, you can see there the red pavers, joined to the existing sidewalk that lead to the memorial. The second phase of the Blue Star, Gold Star Memorial Veterans Project would be completed by Veterans Day, November the 11th, 2019. This tribute to our veterans and their families coincides with the 100-year anniversary of World War I and the birth of the American Legion. We are a small garden club, and this is a big project. But we have been amazed with the support and encouragement we have received from the citizens of Tullahoma. There are several reasons we feel this is a desirable project. It will give a sense of community and civic pride to our downtown, and as well increase tourism and commerce. The site for these memorials has been chosen to be History Park. This has been carefully thought through and prayed about. These memorials will stand for our time in our country's history, when young men and women by the thousands came to Tullahoma by railroad to equip, to go, and to serve in the defense of our country. May we never forget. Thank you.
Thank you,
Any
Ms.
questions?
Ms. Sebring, we thank you very much for being here. We appreciate you and all the members of the group that are here. And I know you're continuing to work with Ms. Moody and Mr. Brooks, and we want to work through those and make this happen, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the audience have anything to address for at this time? Yes, sir. Again, state your name for the record, please.
My name's Toby Butler. I've been a resident of Tullahoma, Tennessee for about 30 years, and I want to know what we're going to do about address the flood problem that we're having over on 210 Broader Street, Bobo's Creek. I've heard many stories about it, and it's not in the budget to fix it, and my property is depleting right in front of me, and I want to know what we're going to do about it to get it fixed, to where I ain't got to walk out in water every morning to go to work. And then when I come home, I gotta fix everything. I mean, it's destroying my house. And I wanna know, what can we do about it?
So if you would leave, we can't answer that question tonight. So if you would leave your contact information with Ms. Moody here, and the Public Works Director is not here tonight, well, I'd ask you to check with him as well, but, so if you would give Ms. Moody your contact information, and we'll be in touch, okay?
All right.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, we will proceed. We're ready for board reports. Mr. Mathis.
In reference to the observance of the Hall of Fame, I walked in that night and I had already heard that we're having the Hall of Fame banquet and we're going to have it in the gymnasium. And the first thing that hits you when you think about that, the gymnasium, how in the world can we have a banquet such as this in a gymnasium? So I walked in and the young lady was sitting up there, Miss Enos, and I said, I'd like to see what this looks like. She said, all right, follow me. I walked in and I went, you have got to be kidding me. Absolutely gorgeous. You did a great job. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alderman Duncan, please, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. On yesterday, I've been speaking, well, actually, I've been speaking all along during the month about gospel extravaganza that was coming up, and that did go off yesterday, and it was a great event. We gave about $2,000 in scholarships for continuing education. It's a part of a plan that it's a group that's been in existence for 33 years now, and every year we do this gospel extravaganza and do little fundraisers to raise money for scholarships for continuing education kids. So anyway, this year we gave out another $2,000, and I'm saying that to say that I've got another event that I'm a part of that raises money for scholarships also, and this one's coming up next Saturday, and it's going to be a luncheon at the South Central Human Resources Agency, I believe, in Fayetteville, and it will be a luncheon that's designed for the same thing, really, to raise scholarship money for kids that are going to school, and so it's another effort to be a blessing in somebody's life. So part of that also, and got TCAT breakfast in the morning. Are you going to attend that? Okay, we've got TCAT breakfast in the morning at the TCAT Center over in Shelbyville, part of the Tennessee Mentoring Program. And so that's on for tomorrow, and then chamber luncheon tomorrow. I did something else, I forget what it was now. I know one of the greatest things that I couldn't remember that first. I was gonna right on the tip of my tongue. The mayor actually did the Valentine's event this year again, and we met some fabulous people at the nursing homes. And I didn't get in the morning session of it, but I did get in the afternoon session, and we just met some beautiful people at the nursing homes and handed out flowers and Valentine cards that were made actually by the
elementary school students here in town.
Okay, elementary school students here in town, and it was such a blessing to be a part of that. So that really made my day. That carried me on for a long time.
Good.
That's
I
it.
enjoyed it as well.
Okay.
So, Mr. Noes, I forgot to remind you that it was Valentine's Day.
Cost me two.
Did it really? Oh, no. Well, we won't go there then. Ms. King.
I'm sorry. Yes, I too attended the Valentine's Day and went to the assisted living and nursing homes, and enjoyed being able to talk to so many who were there. They were so appreciative in the cards, and we had so many more people attend this year that it normally takes us about an hour at each one, but it was like 20 or 30 minutes, and we had time to go for the next one. So we really, really appreciate everybody coming out and helping us with that. That was wonderful. We had our planning and coordinating meeting last week as well. And then tomorrow is the coffee at Brookdale for the Chamber of Commerce. So I hope those who are members will take some time out and go and visit for that as well. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Dunn.
Yes. Last week I attended the We Care committee put together an African American History Week, and so I was really excited to go. I know Jackie was there too. It was excellent. The 2 nights that I was there, they asked me to speak on stewardship, and so I got to speak about the recycling program and stormwater use, and it was just a really very well attended and just a great discussion afterwards. So that was really nice. Last week, Ray and I went to a meeting that was conducted by TVA in regard to, and Jennifer was there also, the recruiting industry to Coffee County, and it was really exciting because they're down to a top 10 list, and we've made that list out of the 90. How many counties? 95, thank you. 95 counties, so we've made the short list. So it was more or less kind of a job interview. I kind of felt like just kind of what were the good qualities of Coffee County. And I thought Jennifer pointed out something that I just thought was really nice. What she said was that we have a very unique county in that there's a lot of rural area, and then of course we've got our world-class airport here, broadband. I mean, so depending on what industry you're wanting and whether you need access to a highway or air, you can find a lot here in Coffee County. So it seemed like there was a lot of joint, just like-minded individuals in that room. It was really nice. Earth Day is going well. We are still seeking more sponsors and vendors. I think Shady Grove Garden Club is going to be a part of that. Also, they're going to be selling their bricks. So that was I think that'll go well, and that list of folks getting involved is continuing to grow. Tomorrow, I'm going to be going to Manchester to attend a conference being put on by Haven of Hope. There is Tennessee is 4th in the nation for domestic homicide. So I think that's a statistic that I would like to see change for sure. So we're going to talk about that. But
yeah, thank you for going to that. Yeah. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Alderman Dunn. You covered the TVA meeting very well, so I enjoyed participating in it. Appreciated the opportunity to participate in it rather than just letting it happen, kind of influence it. I did attend the ACC meeting at the Gossick Center at AEDC, keeping up with the things that are so important in our community with respect to the Arnold Engineering Development Center. But most of the week last week I spent with the folks from Arnold, or AOPA, the Airplane Owners and Pilots Association. They had half a dozen, more than that, 8 or 10 people from AOPA headquarters in town last week looking at and planning for their event in September. It's coming up on the 13th and 14th of September this year. And I think they are as excited about coming as we are about having them. So that will be a big event. I escorted them out to UTSI. They will be taking visitors out there to tour our hypersonics facility and other things that we're doing at UTSI. So that's something to be, for all of us in the community, to get excited about, I think, is that our AOPA fly-in, where we'll have 500 to 700 airplanes coming in. The Friday night of that will be exciting with a drone show, about 100 drones flying in formation. A swarm of drones, they call it. So we're excited about that. That's all I have.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Norris. Ms. Day, anything you'd like to report? Any activities that you're involved? Or?
The Tullahoma High School HOSA will be holding a blood drive for the community. We're still discussing a date, but it will be held in THS Gym.
Good. I've attended that before. Good. So thanks again for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
The only thing that I have that's not been announced, I believe, that received this letter recently on behalf of the Arbor Day Foundation. I'd like to congratulate Tullahoma on earning recognition as a 2018 Tree City USA. Residents of Tullahoma should be proud to live in a community that makes the planting and care of trees a priority. Again, we celebrate the commitment to the people of Tullahoma and trees of Tullahoma, and thank you for helping create a healthier planet for all of us. I'm not sure, but I think this is maybe our 22nd year. I'm not sure exactly, but been a long time. Okay, we're ready for report for the city attorney. Mr. Worsham, please, sir.
A little bit later in the agenda tonight, we're going to be entertaining resolution number 1785. That's the resolution that we've discussed several times before. That's the resolution that we are asking the city to enact encouraging the county executive or the county mayor and the county commission to ensure that 2 residents of Tullahoma be appointed on a regular basis as appointees are appointed to the Public Building Authority for Coffee County, Tennessee. This, of course, isn't binding. Mayor Cordell has said that he intends to do that. We haven't had any actual word from the county commission. We've asked them to take whatever action is necessary and appropriate to see that that happens in the future. There are no prohibitions under the state law or any requirements relative to residents except that they must be residents of the county in which the Public Building Authority is located, so that Tullahoma people that are Coffee County residents would qualify for that. So you'll be considering that later on. Within 3 days, we'll be filing the delinquent tax suits for the 2017 delinquent taxes. So I'm encouraging everybody in town to pay those taxes if you haven't already to avoid additional penalties and interest. We're working on that now with Ms. Golden. We've been working feverishly because she's collecting all the 2018 taxes right now as well as that. So we'll get it all done as we always do. I also had the privilege of attending the Tennessee Municipal Attorneys Association meeting in Brentwood this last week, and we covered a number of topics, and I'm just going to read to you the topics we covered. I'm certainly no expert in these, but I did learn a lot about all of them, and if any of you have any questions about these matters, I might be able to answer them for you at some appropriate time if you want to get in touch with me. We talked about the American Disabilities Act, sort of a refresher course on that. You all are familiar with it, and we have implemented that act here in Tullahoma many years ago and do it on a continual basis when we have construction projects here. We talked about the Family and Medical Leave Act, and that's important for our employees. We talked about the harassment in the Me Too era. That's pretty important now because there's so many accusations about things like that that have to be addressed, and eventually it may happen here. We hope it won't, but it might be, and we'll have to address that when the time comes. We discussed the open records and open meetings laws, and you're familiar with those, of course. We've discussed those at some of our meetings before. We talked about bankruptcy issues and collection practices for municipalities. That was something I learned a good deal more about than I knew before. We also talked about due process and real property tax litigation, and that helped me prepare for these suits that we're going to be filing in a couple of days. We talked about the latest case law and Attorney General's opinions, and former partner in our law firm is now the city attorney in Kingsport, Tennessee, Mike Billingsley, Tullahoma resident, and he did an excellent job. He does that every year, and he sends his regards to all the people in Tullahoma. And we talked about the defensible demonstrations for under the unsafe building ordinances. We have the slum clearance ordinance. We've enacted that in Tullahoma, and I learned some things that will be helpful in that regard too. So it was a very, it was an enjoyable meeting because I met a lot of my old friends and got to visit with them. And we discussed other topics in our social gatherings in addition to these that were covered in the agenda. But if y'all have any questions, get in touch with me, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good. Your report. Thank you. Mrs. Moody.
I will be brief and just draw your attention to the budget calendar that's on your consent agenda. Believe it or not, in about 2 weeks, I'll begin meeting with the departments individually and kind of talk through preliminary budget and make sure that, you know, what I've told all of them, we have to end this year strong. So we'll be looking at year-to-date and where we are going to end up June 30th and then begin preparing for next year. So already time.
Very good. Thank you. All right, ready for the consent agenda. Item number 1928, minutes of February 11, 2019, regular meeting. 1929, approve a schedule for the fiscal year 2020 budget. 1930, approve a $5,000 grant award from Appalachian Regional Commission and authorize 50% matching funds and the mayor to execute all related documents to support free public Wi-Fi in downtown Tullahoma. 1931, approve the appointment of Rich Ellis, the Tullahoma Area Economic Development Corporation Board, Tullahoma Industrial Development Board, Tullahoma Health, Educational, and Housing Facility Board for 6-year terms. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Proper motion by Mr. Beck and second by Mr. Millis. All those in favor of the consent agenda as presented, vote green. Opposed, vote red. Motion passes 6-0. We have 3 items of old business. Ordinance number 1516, consider an ordinance to amend the Tullahoma zoning ordinance and add a definition, add as a use, and add development requirements for independent senior living facilities for passage on the second and final of 2 readings. As you recall, we earlier held a public hearing on that. We heard from one individual and heard an explanation by Mr. Lawson. Is there a motion to approve on second reading ordinance 1516?
Move to approve.
Second. A motion by Mr. Noah, seconded by Ms. King. Any discussion? Can you step to the podium one more time? And I'm sorry, I forgot your name. And what is your position with the entity, please?
My name is Chris Sharp.
Okay.
I'm actually I'm their engineer.
Okay.
But I work with this particular group all over. This is the farthest from Knoxville we've been, but I'll probably, this is my sixth project with them.
Okay. So I'm not asking for anything proprietary, please understand that, but can you tell us a little bit more about the project itself?
As far as the makeup of the facility?
Yes, sir.
Like Mr. Lawson says, it caters toward 55 years and older. And it's basically like a rental, but your monthly fees include meals, entertainment. They have they provide transportation if that's needed. And they have a theater. I mean, they're really nice, very nice facilities.
So it's not a condo. It's not their unit. The homes are not for sale. They're for rent. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
But it includes utilities, and so basically it's all inclusive.
Yeah.
And the big difference between a traditional a nursing home or assisted living facility is this particular type of facility does not provide medical care. Again, they can take people to appointments and that kind of thing, but there aren't any nurses on call because there's a whole different set of criteria for licensure when you do that. So.
Very good. Mr. Novis.
Could you tell us how many units or how many units you have that you plan for there?
We're proposing 100 here, and it's a mix of 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and I think some of them have kitchens, some of them don't. Just it's kind of preference, individual preference, I guess. The other facilities have ranged anywhere from like 84 at the one we did in Blount County to 104 to one they're building now in Knoxville.
How many square feet per unit? Single bedroom, double bedroom? How many square feet? How large are these units?
I think they vary, and I'd hate to guess off the top of my head. I have the preliminary floor plans in with our drawings, but I unfortunately didn't bring those with me. They're pretty sizable units.
Can you give us some idea of what these rentals will be?
As far as the fees?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Anything, any other questions? Well, we appreciate you being with us tonight.
Thank
If
you.
you would ask them to save me a corner room.
That'll work. That sounds great. Thank you all. And I'd be happy to get you information. I honestly don't have any idea.
Like to talk to you about it.
I stopped at the front door.
Well, it'll be a great addition to our community. Looking forward to it. Absolutely looking forward
It
to it.
almost sounds like you're on vacation at home.
Yeah.
you know?
Up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here too, once the bill comes.
Yeah. Any discussion? Any further discussion? All those in favor of the second reading of ordinance 1516, vote green. Opposed, vote red. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you all.
Ordinance number 1517, consider an ordinance to amend the Tullahoma zoning ordinance to exempt off-street parking areas in the central business district from section so-and-so, part 5 of the zoning ordinance for passage in the second and final 2 readings. Once again, we had earlier tonight, we had a public hearing. You heard an explanation by Mr. Lawson. This will be the second of 2 readings. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Mathis, seconded by Ms. Dunn. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
If you would, Mr. Lawson, could you give us an example of what changes are for this parking area?
Right now, it requires, if a parking area is within 10 feet of a property line, that they would have to provide some type of obstruction to keep the vehicles from crossing over to the other property. This would eliminate that particular requirement in the C1 district.
Is that not a good idea?
Well, when you're dealing with like developments that you're allowed to build right on the lot line with, and there's no requirement for minimum requirement for parking, it really could be a hindrance in certain situations where in the C2 district, it would be, in my opinion, it'd be advantageous to have, being that you do require
parking, and you do need to create a situation where it doesn't cross over to other property into on their lot. But in the C1, they could join a unit, or it could have a parking area, and one day that area gets developed to be a building, and it wouldn't create a non-conforming situation in the C1 district or like it would in the C2.
This was a staff-initiated amendment, and it was in response to the fact in the C1 district we have a mixture of uses. You probably see the same thing that we do, that there are some uses that the public parking that's available accommodates that use, and other areas where it's not sufficient. And so this, we thought, would relax the restrictions in the downtown and allow for additional parking areas to be built, potentially, by neighboring property owners that could help to alleviate that parking issue.
Well, I certainly recognize the issue that we have, that there is a problem with downtown parking. And how many, we have a limited number of parking spaces downtown. How many are we going to increase it by doing this? Have you done a study on it? We're making a change in the rules, but how much are we improving the situation?
Depends on what point of view you're looking at it from. I mean, if you're looking at it from we need more spaces.
Are we increasing?
We're not increasing any. Actually, we'd be decreasing the areas that would require parking. But at the same, you would be allowed. You get into these situations where you got these lots and these zero lot line developments, and you get where you can put parking, but then once you put the parking there, you're within 10 feet, and then it requires obstruction, where if you do not require that, then you can have the parking on one lot and then have the parking lot or the rest of the parking lot on another without having to put in like curb and gutter or wheel stops. So this allows a continuous physical parking area.
Well, the question is, are we increasing the number of parking spaces downtown or not?
I don't think it's really doing one or the other. I think that it's just creating a situation where you're able to cross lot lines with parking areas.
So would this help any business be able to have more freedom in the choices that they're making with their parking lot?
Yes, it would give them more flexibility.
I think it has the potential of allowing us to increase parking as the need arises and as developments occur. We don't have a project right now that we plan on doing, because I've looked at this with Mr. Lawson, but as we do have development here, let's say if a big building were torn down, as an example, and then we were going to replace that building with a parking lot and wanted to connect that parking lot with a contiguous piece of property, we could do that without obstruction. That's what it does for future development, is what it's saying there.
Other discussion? Ready to vote? All those who wish to vote for ordinance 1517 on the second and final of two readings, vote green. Opposed, vote red. Motion passes 6-0. Ordinance number 1518, considering an ordinance to rezone 5 parcels from general commercial C2 to medium density or R2 to accommodate single-family dwellings for passage on the second and final of two readings. Once again, we earlier held a public hearing. No one objected to this. And we've heard a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission. Is there a motion to pass on second and final reading ordinance 1518?
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Noes.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mathis. Any discussion? All those in favor of ordinance 1518, vote green. Opposed, vote red. Motion passes 6-0. All right, we have two items of new business. Resolution number 1784. Consider approval of resolution to amend the fiscal year 2019 budget to revise the capital project budget for expenses related to design and construction of a new police department. Let me get a motion and a second on the floor and open the floor for any discussion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Alderman Duncan.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mathis. You see the complete, I'm not sure if anybody has any discussion, or just read those 5 pages of information. All those in any discussion?
There is some discussion.
Yes, sir.
I made a motion back in December to approve this new police station, which was approved with the budget as indicated in our packet. Budget was $3,250,000 for a 14,000 square foot facility. We now are proposing to reduce the size to a 10,000 square foot building, but increase the budget to $4,200,000. Just a quick calculation on that, just first blush, says we reduced the size by 28%. Yet we've increased the price of it by 29%. I'd like to know where the first budget came from that we approved and why it's so far off. Building costs hasn't gone up that much. So I'm all for our police station. But yet there's some things here that I don't understand. I'd just like to have a better understanding. For instance, one of the reasons for the lack of adequate budget was indicated as $875,000 were not budgeted as owner costs. Yet in the new budget, we're only proposing $375,000 for owner costs. Those are disconnects to me. So I'd like to know why these disconnects have occurred at this point. And I run businesses, I manage programs, and when programs get in trouble, I'm charged normally with, okay, live within your budget. And I expect some of the people in Tullahoma that pay taxes would like to know the same answer.
Sure, good question.
So that's that is just for information that I think people need to understand.
Mrs. Moody?
Well, I will try to take those questions in order. The first question about the original budget, I can tell you, I think that original budget came from the architect and a preliminary cost estimate, just a rough order of magnitude. Architects, I would say, are notorious. They're not contractors. So until you go to bid, you don't have actual costs. You're always taking a risk. I think that those numbers are 2 years old, so that's a factor. The construction market is very competitive right now. The numbers that we're getting from actual contractors are much higher, so that's why we are at about 95% complete with a set of plans. And as they went out to the market
$250,000 that we budgeted for. That's what program managers are charged with on a regular basis, is going back, okay, here's the budget that you've got to work with. What can you build within that budget? Have we looked at that?
Absolutely. Yes, I have. So one of the things that I've done with Mayor Curley is presented a list of options just like that. I think what you would call value engineering. So a list of items that we could take out of the project. Some of those items we weren't comfortable removing, and that's why we looked at the square footage of the building and reducing the size of the building, but maybe keeping some of the features that we liked in the original plan. We can revisit that, and I could show you. I think we're talking about a much smaller building again. If we reduce the budget beyond this $4 million range.
Well, I'm sitting here tonight, I'm all in favor of the police department's new building. I want that on the record. However, I'm uncomfortable having been given the set of the estimates that we had to begin with. Tonight, we're given another set of numbers that I appreciate the fact that they have been scrubbed. Some, but I don't have a complete level of confidence in, because there's such a disparity between them. I appreciate, totally appreciate the challenge that we have. But I'm uncomfortable with saying, okay, yes, I approve this, without understanding more about how it grew in cost and shrunk in size. And anyway, that's...
Yeah, I would be very happy to sit down individually with you and show you, walk through that whole story with you.
But tonight I'm being asked to vote on a resolution to approve this.
Well, remember, when the bids come in, we'll have another opportunity at that point. So we're not spending money tonight.
We're being asked by a resolution to approve a budget.
Well, that's right, but you'll have another shot, or probably more than that, at this before it's...
Well, I hope that you don't feel that I'm an obstructionist or opposing this, but I hope that you do appreciate the questions that I've asked.
So we've not received any bids yet, is that correct?
No.
gone through and those decisions, and I would encourage you to do that. Yep, very
I could
enlightening,
even,
actually.
you know, I'm sure the architect would be happy to come back too and walk through some of that. If there were enough of you that you wanted to have a work session on that.
Let's try one-on-one first of all.
Yeah, I mean, however you want to do it.
Can I just ask, and maybe too soon to ask this now, but what other projects are we thinking about postponing or nixing because of this extra money that's going to be spent on the police
There are
department?
none that are taken off the table or postponed. Whenever you put that capital budget together, it's a budget. And as we bid projects, there have been some that have come in under. For instance, the last Greenway project we did, I think it came almost 200,000 under what we had budgeted for it. So it was just a matter of looking at actual expenses and what's remaining to be allocated and just moving some things around, but nothing was cut.
All right, good discussion. Anything else? Well, ready to vote. All those in favor of resolution 1784, vote green, opposed, vote red. Motion passes 6-0. Last resolution, number 1785, consider approval of resolution regarding representation by Tullahoma residents on the Public Building Authority of Coffee County, Tennessee. You earlier heard an excellent explanation by Mr. Worsham. Is there a motion to approve resolution 1785?
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Norris, second by Ms. King. Any discussion? All those in favor of resolution 1785, vote green, opposed, vote red. Motion passes 6-0. Seeing no other business, we will adjourn and go immediately into the beer board portion of the agenda. We have one consent item, the minutes of February 11th meeting. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. King, second by Mr. Norris. All those in favor of the consent agenda, vote green, opposed, vote red. Motion passes 6-0. No items of old business. We have one item of new business. Item number 19, BBO5, notice of update to ownership arrangement for beer permit, Cherokee Distributing Company, 400 South Anderson Street. You see that discussion on page 82 where they had a change in ownership. And the recommendation is to approve the updated beer permit ownership information without a new application and associated fees. Is there a motion to adopt the recommendation?
Move to approve that.
Proper motion by Mr. Norris.
Second.
Second by Alderman Duncan. Any discussion? All those in favor of 19 BB05, vote green, opposed, vote red. Motion passes 6-0. No other business, we are adjourned.